Hey, what's up, Lightbolt Joe here. Today we are going to discuss the fifth Pirates of the Caribbean film, Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. This stars our one and only Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, Captain Jack Sparrow. Jeffrey Rush plays Captain Barbossa. Javier Bardem is Captain Salazar in this film. Brenton Thwaites, we love Brenton. He plays Henry Turner. Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom are Elizabeth Turner and Will Turner, respectively. At the very end, Will's in the beginning, and then you have Cara Salazario. I can never say her name. She played Teresa in the Maze Runner films. She plays Karina Smith in this film, which we then later find out she is Karina Barbossa. So, this movie came out in 2017. It is 2 hours and 9 minutes long. There's two directors to this. Honestly, I forgot their names. Jerry Bruckheimer produced this film as well. So this is a continuation of the series that we have loved since 2003, right? It is a very long series taking place over many, many years. Sorry, I have a bug bite randomly on my... You see that? Where the hell did a mosquito come from? God, these summer bugs, man. They're going to kill me. The film starts out with Karina being tried as a witch, despite that she's a horologist, which is someone who studies time, the lineality of time. But of course, pirates don't know what horologist means. All they hear is whore, so they think she's a studier of being a whore. Brothel, prostitute, all that trollopy stuff. Scrumpet. So Karina and... Well, that doesn't actually start there. It starts with an 11-year-old Henry Turner figuring out where the Dutchman is, tying himself to a cannonball, dropping it into the ocean, landing on the Dutchman. The Dutchman rises from the sea. Will has a face-to-face with his son, and Henry says that he's going to find a way to break the curse, that he's going to find the trident, he's going to find Poseidon's trident to break the curse, because that's what all the myths say. Henry says he is the... Will tells Henry to just leave it alone, that this is what it is, that you can't break the curse, but Henry is determined to break his father's curse so he can spend time with his father. A noble act. Karina is being tried for a witch in St. James. Jack, we see slumming it with, drunkenly passed out, in a bank vault of St. James with the mayor's wife. Hysterical. Jack and company then steal said safe to get the treasure, but the treasure escapes throughout St. James in a very Fast Five type of motion, where the bank vault is attached to vehicles and scatters around the town. Fast Five, of course, using cars. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, of course, using horse-drawn carriages. So it's very entertaining, the similarities between the two. Fast Five was, 2015, I think? 2014? I don't remember, to be honest, when Fast Five was. We got to look that up. Yeah, so it was a fun comparison of that. Jack still has the pearl in a bottle. And the bottle of the pearl never gets broken until later on, when Barbossa's back into the mix. Mr. Gibbs is back into the mix. Henry and Karina are with Jack and Barbossa at some various point after Henry is being passed from Royal Navy ship to Royal Navy ship of the British Empire, because he can never follow orders, because he knows all the myths and the legends and the Devil's Triangle myth, which is where Captain Salazar and his crew have perished because of Jack Sparrow in his earlier years, before Jack was even a captain, which was a cool little prequel backstory to the Jack Sparrow character that we know and love. So that was fun, seeing a teenage Johnny Depp, CGI teenage Johnny Depp, doing the bootleg turn to trap Salazar and his men into the Devil's Triangle, blowing them up. Mystical properties prevail. Barbossa still has the mystical sword of Blackbeard's. So there's a lot of supernatural aspects to this series, which is pretty cool, because it brings in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, which we all know and love, but it brings in the different pirate mythologies to the stories as well. The different, the sirens as mermaids in the fourth movie. Davy Jones is obviously a pirate myth. The Flying Dutchman is obviously a pirate myth. Captain Salazar is obviously a pirate myth. Blackbeard is obviously a pirate myth, based off of actual events, but still, it's fun seeing these things portrayed in such a cinematic masterpatic? I don't think that's a word, masterpiece, but masterpatic. I'm going to look that up because I like it. Master Paddock Way. Master Paddock Way. It's good. I like it. What was interesting about this is we know Calypso is a living god, right? We're well aware of that. So when they're talking about Poseidon's trident, it makes sense. It's because Calypso is a goddess, right? And we know her from Pirates 2 and 3. So why can't there be another god a part of this universe, a part of this Pirates universe? So bringing Poseidon's trident as the focal point where if you break it, then you can, destroy every curse in the sea, which is what happens. Later, Karina realizing that Barbossa is actually her father because of a journal that was passed down with Ruby in it, which they find on an island. And the stars are the coordinates to find the island. So there's a lot of astronomy going into this, which is really neat. So I don't know why they kept using the horologist term aside from making the jokes, because honestly, it's more of she's more of an astronomer than a horologist, because she's not really studying time, she's studying the stars. So it was just interesting. I mean, yes, you can tell certain times of when looking at the stars, like you can see, when Mercury is in retrograde, but that's astrology, not astronomy. So I don't know. There's words that I don't know myself that should be thought upon, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a nice way of wrapping it up. I loved seeing Henry Turner being a protagonist. We've seen him at the end of 2. At the end of 3. We saw him at another point. Was it 3? Beginning of 4? End of 2, beginning of 3? I think it was end of 2, beginning of 3. And then we see him again, obviously, in 5. So I love Brenton. Brenton is an incredible actor. He is Robin or Dick, the Dick character in the Nightwing character in Titans, the DC Universe's Titans. Haven't seen it, but I know Brenton's a great actor. So I would love him to be in other pirate films as Henry Turner. I loved the little reunion that Elizabeth had with Will, and then Elizabeth, Will, and Henry had. I thought that was a very cute little thing. And then obviously the post-credit scene of Elizabeth and Will sleeping, with the shadow looming of Davy Jones himself. So is it a dream? Is Davy Jones back? Did Davy Jones make a deal with Poseidon to be back? But why is he still in crustacean form? Who knows? Because there's not a 6th really happening. There's a lot of stuff going on that it was kind of scrapped, but that's where they're going to be doing spin-offs and stuff, which I'm fine with. Like I said, Pirates of the Caribbean is a vast universe, so there can be different pirate stories. I'm totally fine with that. I just would like some clarification on the end. My only downside, and we talked about the timeline kind of throughout all of this, I had to look it up because a French guillotine was mentioned specifically by name in this movie, because Jack says Jack is given the option of how he would like to die by British rule. He could be fired upon. He could be what was the other thing? Disemboweled or something like that, or the new thing, thing called a guillotine, and then they're talking about that it's French, so it's a French guillotine. I looked it up. Okay, I gotta put my glasses on because I need to see these things. The French guillotine was named in 1789. Okay, so that's our concrete time period, 1789. There's been guillotines in the past of different schematics, but the French guillotine by name is named after someone whose last name is literally Guillotine, and it was named in 1789. King George II, who is referenced in 1, 2, and 3 of Pirates, we see him in 4 as well, right? 4, yeah, for the Fountain of Youth. He ruled from 1727 to 1760, followed by George III, who ruled from 1760 to 1820. George III is not referenced in Pirates of the Caribbean. George II is referenced, and we see him in the 4th Pirates of the Caribbean. So if his last rule was in 1760, and we know that majority of the Pirates of the Caribbean films take place during the rule of George II, because he's referenced as he's proclamating this, he's proclamating that. Commodore Beckett was doing George II's bidding, etc. And then we see George II. So the only way to see George II is if these films as a whole takes place between 1727 and 1760. Now, someone broke down the timeline of the pirate films, so just in brief summary, this is a wrong timeline, but I'm still going to read it anyway. In 1720, Will is found by Elizabeth as kids. 1728 is when the Port Royal story starts. 1730 is when Henry Turner is born. 1751 is when Jack, Will, and Karina look for Poseidon's trident. So the timeline doesn't add up, because if 1751 is when the fifth pirate movie starts, the French guillotine didn't come out until 1789, according to the history. So, when did these movies take place? If we take out the French guillotine as a hilarity of Jack attempting to be murdered, but not because the guillotine kept swiveling, kind of a thing. If we take that out, then that timeline of 1720 to 1751 is fine. But because the French guillotine is named, and the French guillotine was named in 1789, but George III's rule ended in 1760, timeline doesn't add up. Unless by George II, they actually meant George III. Because if it's George III's ruling, that's 1760 to 1820. That is that's 60 years. So I'm fine with keeping the guillotine in if it is in fact a 1789 French guillotine. I'm fine with keeping that in and moving the 1720 timeline up to the 60-year rule of George III. There's a lot of British history for you right there. I'm going to put my little beautiful spiral notebook down now. But I think that's fine. That's my only qualms with this entire 5-film series, is that particular timeline. But I nitpick. I'm sorry. I nitpick. That's it. That's all I got. On to the spin-offs. They're going to be awesome. I know it. We have our heading. Mucho mahalo.